High on Mount Everest, where the air is razor thin and temperatures can freeze skin in seconds, the dead don't decompose, they remain. Frozen, preserved, and sometimes unsettling. In 2006, on the North Col route, climbers encountered a sight that would lodge itself deep in mountaineering lore. A body, frozen upright, legs crossed, back against a rock, looked almost peaceful. His eyes were open, his head tilted gently forward, as if he was merely resting or meditating. He was dubbed the German Dead. The image was surreal, lifelike, and deeply disturbing. But the real mystery began a year later. When climbers returned to the same route, the body was gone. Not vanished, but moved, lying several meters away in a spot even more treacherous. No one claimed to move him. No recovery effort was logged, and no logical explanation made sense. This is the chilling mystery of the body that moved on the roof of the world. In the spring of 2006, climbers ascending the North Col route of Mount Everest encountered a figure that would leave a permanent imprint on their memories. A man seated against the rocks, frozen and watching straight at them. He looked alive. There were no signs of trauma or panic, no crumpling, no fall position. He seemed composed, as if he had simply sat down and chosen never to rise again. The eerie serenity of his posture made it impossible to look away. They say that photos taken by climbers circulated quickly, although there is no proof of this, drawing fascination and fear. No one knew his name, but the gear, European, well-worn, suggested he was German. That was all anyone had. So they gave him a name, the German Dead. He became a landmark on the route. Some climbers reported a strange feeling of calm in his presence, while others admitted to unease. It wasn't the fact that he had died. That was tragically common on Everest. It was how he had died. Still seated, eyes open, like he was waiting for something. He didn't look like a body. He looked like a warning. And with no team claiming him, no family reaching out, and no official recovery attempt, the German Dead became something else, a symbol, a reminder of the razor's edge between human ambition and nature's indifference. But Everest, it seemed, wasn't done with him yet. The German Dead quickly became part of Everest folklore. He wasn't the first to die on the mountain, but no other body had ever drawn such intense fascination. It was the way he appeared, tranquil, almost meditative, unlike the twisted forms usually left behind by exhaustion or exposure. This man had passed in a pose that felt deliberate, poised, still. For many climbers, the sight was spiritual. Some said he looked like a monk in deep contemplation. Others likened him to a sentinel, watching the route, guarding something only he understood. One climber even described it as meeting death with dignity, not disaster. The psychological effect was so profound that a new term began circulating: the sitting dead effect. Climbers reported hallucinations, discomfort, even panic after seeing him. Solo climbers were particularly vulnerable. Something about that upright corpse, those half-living eyes, it got into your head. Yet, despite the first-hand accounts, no identification was ever confirmed. His gear gave only vague clues. No official inquiry was made. It was as though he had entered the mountain anonymously, and Everest had decided to keep it that way. Still, year after year, climbers would pass by and recognize him immediately. His image lingered long after the ascent. He became more than a waypoint. He became a myth. And then, without warning, that myth fractured. Because when climbers returned the next season, they discovered something no one could explain. The German Dead had moved. In 2007, climbers returning to the North Col were met with a jarring realization. The German Dead, whose seated figure had become a near-sacred marker on the route, was gone. The rock he had leaned against was bare. The hollow where his legs had rested was empty. At first, climbers assumed he had been recovered, perhaps finally claimed by a team or removed by Sherpas. but no such report had been filed. No photos, no logs, no acknowledgement from any expedition. Then someone spotted him. Several meters downhill, sprawled awkwardly on his side, lay the same body, the same suit, same gear, same unmistakable features. But now he was collapsed, his limbs bent, his posture broken, as if he had fallen. The location surprised everyone. It wasn't a place you could simply stumble into. The terrain between the two positions was steep, uneven, and dangerous. Moving a corpse through that stretch would require ropes, a team, and real risk. And yet, no one admitted to doing it. Theories began to swirl. Some proposed that Everest's infamous winds, capable of exceeding 100 miles per hour, could have dislodged him. But others pointed out that the seated position had been nestled behind rocks, somewhat shielded. To not only move the body that far, but also reorient it completely, would require almost surgical conditions, and still, it seemed unlikely the wind alone could do it without tearing the body apart. So, what had happened? Had someone attempted a secret recovery? Was it the work of an unreported Sherpa mission? Or was it something stranger? A mystery authored by the mountain itself? No one knew, but what they did know was this. The German dead was no longer a peaceful figure in repose. He had become something far more unsettling, a question Everest refused to answer. The movement of the German dead triggered a storm of speculation. In the climbing world, where every death is usually accounted for, every corpse logged, and every recovery meticulously documented, this was a serious anomaly. The most rational explanation? Wind. Everest's upper slopes are infamous for hurricane-force gusts. Some argued that a sudden, violent storm could have toppled the body and sent it sliding, but skeptics pointed out that he had been firmly wedged against rock. His seated position suggested stability. And if the wind truly had that power, why wasn't the body damaged or scattered? Another theory, an unreported recovery attempt. Perhaps a Sherpa team or a small expedition had tried to move him quietly, either out of respect, fear of media attention, or superstition. But in the tightly connected Everest network, this would be highly unusual. No one came forward. No base camp logs supported the claim. At that altitude where every movement is strategic, such silence was implausible. Some even proposed a collective false memory, that the first climbers misremembered his position. But climbers clearly talked about the man sitting upright, alive looking. The change wasn't imagined, it was real. And then there were the more chilling suggestions. Paranormal theories that Everest had moved him, that the mountain, revered and feared by local cultures as a living entity, had acted with intention. Climbers often speak of a presence on Everest, something watching, something waiting. Some believed the movement of the German dead was symbolic, that he was taken away once his message had been delivered. Absurd, maybe. But when logic fails, mystery thrives. In the death zone, where the air starves your brain and shadows stretch long, belief sometimes fills the space that reason cannot. In the years since the German dead was last reported, his story has taken on a spectral life of its own. There is no official record confirming his identity, no concrete evidence of his movement, and no consistent documentation across expeditions. Some researchers suggest the entire account may be a case of conflated memories or evolving mountaineering legend. But on Everest, facts often blur in the thinning air. Among climbers, the tale still circulates. The man who sat watching the summit, the body that moved without explanation. Whether wholly real or partially imagined, the story has embedded itself into Everest's folklore. Guides pass it along to newcomers. Solo climbers remember the photos, even when it's impossible to find any of these photos. And everyone who ascends the North Col route wonders if they might encounter something out of place. Psychologists studying altitude-induced trauma now refer to the sitting dead effect, a term inspired by this very case, describing the deep psychological discomfort caused by seeing lifelike corpses in high-altitude environments. Whether this man existed as described or has become a vessel for climbers' collective fears, the emotional truth of the story remains. He represents the stillness that haunts the top of the world, the fragile boundary between presence and absence, legend and memory, reality and hallucination. On Everest, where the veil between life and death is thinnest, not every mystery has a body. But some, like the German dead, may never truly leave. What do you think really happened? Write your theory in the comments below.